Hello everyone and welcome to today's webinar titled Agile Leadership, Leading People Through Agile Principle. My name is Francesco Librandi and I'm a volunteer within the Northern Italy chapter as a branch Friuli Venezia Giulia Deputy Director in particular. With me today there is also Tony Ciccardi, branch Piemonte Valle d'Aosta Director, who helped in the organization of this webinar. I would like to welcome Sidita Hasi, our speaker today. But before we start, I would like to give you a few information. If you have any question during the presentation, please write them in the question section or in the chat. We will collect them, and at the end, Sidita will answer to those questions. If we don't have enough time to answer to all your questions, we will ask Sidita to answer offline, and later on we will publish on the Northern Italy chapter website. Regarding the topic of today's webinar, today is about agile leadership, really an important topic, a challenge for many leaders, many organizations, and Sidita will give us some overview and tips how to lead people through those principles. Our speaker, Sidita Hasi, is an international speaker. He has worked in Italy and in US on project management and operation management projects. But now I will leave the stage to Sidita for the presentation. Enjoy and thank you.
Thank you, Francesco, and thank you, Tony, for having me today. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm very happy to bring my experience. As you mentioned, I've been kind of all over the place, and I've been through changes myself. So I'm very, I feel this topic very close to my heart. And when we went through these months, I noticed myself not necessarily going through a lot of hard time, to be honest, emotionally at least speaking. And when I started reflecting, I started understanding that maybe the changes I've gone through my life, maybe those kind of build in me some sort of strength or mindset that is kind of willing to be open to new things coming. So as I reflected on those, as I reflected through the methodology that we always use at project management, or you mentioned operations management, I've been working in operational excellence, which is the quality part of it. And I started to look into what are these methods teaching us and why are we still struggling with them? And as I see at my own background, I feel like we do need, in addition to methods, we do need to have some sort of values and some sort of identity that it's our core, what builds us as individuals, as well as what helps then shape a culture of an organization, because everybody has its own identity that brings into the workplace. So as I see these two things interrelated, I do have an Albanian background. Many of you know the history of Albania by now. So we did have a lot of challenges and struggles, even to think out of the box during communism time. So I don't know, sometimes I would feel like that didn't let us think outside of the box, but sometimes I felt like those actually times helped us bring some perseverance that you need in order for pushing yourself to be innovative and to think, how can I get a way out of the situation? So as we move through change and through being agile, which is kind of more a value thing and a mindset thing, but not just like a methodology itself, I feel like those core values that we have instilled in us, we do need to look at them and see, are those still healthy for us, for where we're going, even from a personal or organizational standpoint, or do we need to take some time and reflect on it? I moved to Italy, spent 10 years there for my undergrad studies, and then started working there. And I felt like my branches were kind of, let me try this and that. So it was like, okay, now I have an open environment. Honestly, I was there around 2000, 2008, 9, which it was kind of when we had the economic crisis. So it was another time that was very difficult globally. And I noticed that the Italian companies at that time most of them were small family-owned businesses, but also the corporations were very, very vertical, I would say, in terms of hierarchy, way of thinking. My personal experience was very much into why we're doing it this way, so I always was into questioning the status quo. And a lot of challenges because it was not very open-minded, to be honest with you. So as I started always like, I need to be somewhere where I can explore my mindset and then try something new. I then moved to US for a master's. After finishing my master's MBA, I felt like it was not giving me too much. The classes were typical of undergraduate classes, and then I shifted to organizational leadership. That kind of shifted my whole mindset. I realized that the values we're building into humans, even as we are developing other humans in the organizations, and the mindset we're building, then the culture that we're creating in the organizations, was most of the time more important than the technical aspect of the job. So yes, I do have a PMP. Yes, I'm certified in Lean Six Sigma Green Belt. I almost applied to PhDs when I was there, but what I was noticing is even at the PhD level, I was always going to organizational behavior departments, trying to mix them with operational excellence and operations department. And there was a lot of silos mindset, even at the PhD level, because they were more into this is our thing. Operations do their own supply chain, more quality, data oriented, whereas the organizational behavior was very much into identity, human behavior. But there were not many schools. I found one school, McGill, I remember, the director there was open to have a mixed approach. So and why I'm saying all this is that as we go through Agile now is the new cool thing to do. Yes, there is a framework. Yes, you can get certified in 2 days, so everybody could take it very easily as I got it. But the point here is, are we ready for it? So is it just taking methodology and just throwing out there into any organization, or do we need to look into assessing basically where we're starting from, mindset-wise, cultural-wise, leadership-wise as well, which I will explain a little bit further. But this is the point where I came with this new concept, which I've been in other organizations and consulting companies as well, talking about agile leadership as a new way to lead, basically. So we'll be looking at that in more detail, but I would like to be this two-way perspective. I'm pretty sure I've been attending these webinars myself, so I know there is a very high, good quality of expertise out there. But in terms of Agile, it doesn't matter, so I can shape myself as well. So going Agile with the webinar as well, to know where you coming from. So how much experience do you have with Agile as a methodology? Have you been in a Scrum team? You never heard about it, or you just heard as a terminology, or you feel you are pretty much an expert into applying the framework that Agile has. If we can launch a poll, we could give it some seconds, I would say, because we would know by now. So we kind of shape ourselves as we move forward. Thank you, Francesco. And I do want to point out, I speak Italian very well. It's just we're focusing on English, but if you don't understand something, just write something on the question box and Francesco will let me know, and we can maybe do both languages at some point. I want to make sure you are getting the most out of this webinar. Okay, Francesco, let me know when kind of slowing down.
Yeah, I'm going to close the poll in a few seconds, and immediately after I will be showing the results. Poll closed, and now we can see the results.
If you could read those to me.
Yeah, so the result, 50% of the attendee has voted. 3% of the ones who have voted said not at all, 3%. Okay. 70%, 70, I heard about it but have no experience with it, so the majority. Okay. Then we have a 22%. I have been on a Scrum team, and we have also last but not the least, 5% I'm an agile guru.
Okay, great. It's nice to have a mixed crowd here, but it's also nice to know that many have heard about it. And by now, if you have a PMP or you're planning to get one, I hope you do hear more about it, because as you know, the PMP itself exam will change end of the year. So we'll have a lot more agile frameworks in there. Have you ever been on a Scrum? I've been on a Scrum team. I was leading. I was kind of initiating it for a company, and I saw how much I failed. Not just me, but the whole company, because they were not prepared for it. They knew nothing about it. So it was a good environment to test it out. But those who have been on a Scrum team, I would like to view this webinar from a standpoint that how could I have done things different? Or yeah, if we thought it this way, maybe we could have done better. So there is always a way to improve, as you know, with experience you have had maybe on retrospectives. So look at this webinar from that perspective. Don't feel like I've been on Scrum team, we're just talking about this is very basic. Look at the real dynamics of a Scrum team and what could have been done better from a retrospective perspective, basically. Okay, thank you so much, Francesco. This helps us to move forward as well. So the way, for those who have experience with the Scrums as well, the way I've kind of seen this webinar going is in three kind of sprints, let's say three areas to focus at. But instead of just going and talking right away through Agile and how to lead these teams, we want to think, as I mentioned before, it is a lot about change, because that's what Agile is about. So we're increasing, it's a continuous improvement, incremental product in there. But it brings change. So if we look at change itself from an evolution perspective, what about change has changed as well? I sound a bit too philosophical, but if we go deeper in this concept, we might understand what is the issue? Why are we struggling so much? The second area would be the understanding of agility itself, not just the framework. And then what can we take out of those agile principles or values and apply those as we implement a team and we basically are leading people. So if we think about change and we go to very basics, basically we just, second, this is just a dictionary. So if you just, I'm running out of battery here, that's fine. Fix that, agile. Okay, so if we go to Google, just what change is basically, you'll notice that we have two sort of definitions, but they both are about the same thing. So we are having something when we're trying to shift it to something else. So to something different from what it is, or it's usually followed by into. So we're changing it into something else. And this is, we all know that, we see that in our everyday life. We have changed the way we do things in whatever aspect of our life. So if this is so common, you are saying, why I'm spending so much time listening to just what change is, I know what change is. Then the question becomes, if we know what change is, and we know this change phenomenon, we have always been through evolution as we were created, so why are we so scared of it? If this is such a common concept, why we struggle so much with change? If we look back at, I went to the Independent Seaport Museum in Philadelphia a couple of years ago, and I was not shocked, it's just different when you see it have stories in there, you see documentaries right there, you are in that environment, you are within that ship and all of that, and you see these stories about how slavery was the way that work was built around. And it took a lot of time to shift from that area to, we have industrial way of working in there with child using basically children to work. And then we went to this sort of office, a kind of cool thing, but still very, very vertical, very hierarchy based. And it took a lot of time to change from that. And why is that? Because it's related to mindset. How are we treating a human being? So it's not just like, let's build a different structure, let's build a different framework and let's just implement it as it's nowadays. We have technology, we just change it. Until a couple of months before the COVID started, I was always into, maybe I should find a job that just like work from home, because when I Googled work from home, this is most of the time, this is what you see. You can be on the beach, you have your drink there, and then you can work. It's so cool because technology allowed this, right? So the change into workplace dynamics was very quick when we had more technology advancement compared to the previous times. But now, within these months, how come Googling work from home, it's now showing these images, and these are just Google pictures. Isn't this the same advancement of technology? We knew what working from home, what using a technology-based sort of working from home is. Not most of us, but many of us did. So what was that really freaked us out, and not just companies who have been working on remote? So if we look at what happens from a mindset of a person perspective, is that in the past we have been used to be because the change itself was coming very slowly, we were kind of in our mindset creating expectations. We have a predictable future. Yes, I can change, but if I want to change, not if other people push me or the environment itself push me. In this case, we are not really choosing to change. So this is why we're so resistant to change, or freaking out. We're not even resistant. We just freaked out because that's the first step. So we are into this surprise effect, which we don't very much welcome. And this is not just because, again, change, what comes with change, but how ready, how fast is this change coming, but are we ready for it? If we were ready, even the change was coming very quickly, but we were ready, we knew it was predictable for us, we would welcome it even more. So when we go and lead into this agile frameworks and just leading change itself, we have to make sure that not just our team is ready for it, but the whole organization and the culture of the organization as well. And leadership has to support that set of mindset, basically, because we're talking about the mindset here. If we look at some of the companies, they're called exponential organizations. I went through some certification into exponential organizations, which was, it's if you're curious about it, EXO, OpenEXO has a lot of it. Singularity University, it's an analysis of these companies who change so quickly, and what they use is what basically is an overflow of offer, of demand. So we have an overflow of cars. People have cars, and they can share a ride. They can share basically a room. Airbnb does that. So there is this overflow in the community, and they build a community out of it. But the change within these organizations is so fast because the way they are creating organized structure as well, mindset as well, which is more important inside these companies, it's like having this agility mindset since their DNA. And that's what matters when we are then trying to implement a project in that area. So if we talk about agility for a second, now for the first part, I would like you to take a second if you have questions, because I know at the end you kind of either forget what you had or do I really need to ask. If you had some questions during the first time, please enter those. We'll be taking those in a few. When it comes to agility, most of people, at least that are not in the IT area, this was me a couple of maybe 2-3 years ago, before having agility at FedEx at that time. I thought it's just an IT thing. Unless I was a software developer, I wouldn't need it because I wouldn't understand it as well, because I like preparing, I like documents, I'm very detail oriented. And I thought maybe if I don't have a clear plan since the beginning, I'll never be able to run a project. And that is not the case, because I'm pretty much into let's change this because it doesn't work. So at the same time, me coming from a quality standpoint, which is Kaizen, continuous improvement mindset, and yes, let's do things differently right away. But then having this PMP background where you have to be prepared, everything has to be detailed since the beginning, having all those stakeholders involved, make sure you include everybody. It was kind of contradictory. I'm volunteer for American Society for Quality even now, and I've been there for a couple of years. And honestly, even with PMP, I'm trying to bring these two organizations together. I'm not saying they need to do something together, but I want people from a quality perspective. We're having a conference in Boston, which I was leading, and I was making sure that we have 50% of that conference was just on the leadership and mindset that has to be horizontal, that quality doesn't belong within a quality department. The same way, I want people from a PMP standpoint to think that PMP doesn't belong only at the PMO office. but it is about the whole organization, the identity of that organization, and the identity of the people who are in it. Are these shared common values? Because yes, we can do a project without, I'm saying not without documentation, but having documentation when needed. So we prepare and we'll see how that's done. So a couple of these myths have kind of damaged, I would say, because if Agile was born since 2001 and we are in 2020, almost 20 years later, we're still not using it widely. If we were a bit more open-minded, not having those myths in mind, then we will understand that would have been much more easier, even for organizations who are not just IT related, to shift from a traditional waterfall model, which for those who don't know about Agile, it's just like, as I said before, have all the requirements from the customer. What do you need? Tell me everything right now, and when I'm done, I'm just gonna provide you, deliver you the product. That's the waterfall in a nutshell, basically. Whereas the Agile prototyping mindset is, I will build small incremental products. It's the same product, but the features keep building on top of each other. And it is releasable. By that means that if you have a transportation method in this case, you are providing a bike, let's say we're on step 3, that bike is sellable. The customer can use it. Then the customer will provide feedback and he wants more features. We can add those in future sprints, or let's say time frame for those who don't know Agile yet, Scrum Master sort of role. So what I'm trying to say here is that the methodology itself, yes, it's new, but we're not failing just because we're not using the methodology. Because Agile is not just about the methodology itself, it's a philosophy. And when we think about a house, let's say we want to build a house, let's say we're trying to buy, so many organizations right now are selling methodologies, certifications. Yes, I have some of them. Cool. They look very nice on the resume. Is it the best thing? I want to watch out from people thinking this is the best method. Might be for your organization that time, but if we're talking about shifting everything as we are going through COVID, I would even look into, are those frameworks still valid to be used? So if we have a house and want to build the roof and just start from the roof itself, I don't think that will be sustainable, because it needs some principles to be sustained from. And those principles also need some values to come from. They need to be in alignment with the values of the organization. By organization, I don't mean just top down. We are a corporate executive. These are our values. You just go with it, or you don't. It has, as I said, to be a shared culture within the organization with the people that are in it. So if we think that the basis of house are the values itself, Agile does that for us. The 4 main Agile values are based on collaboration among the team itself. It's not just about having a process designed so well, so A, B, C, follow the steps and you're done. In a silo mindset, finance does this, operations does that, marketing does that, and we're done. It is an operational standpoint. We'll talk about the framework very shortly, but people meet together regardless what department they are at, depending on the need of that project. So it's very collaboration based. Whereas the second value, it's more about releasing a product that works, it's incremental, and not just like focusing on let me get it done all the way to the end since the beginning. Whereas the third one, which is very important, is the part of the customer. I would say I would dare to say all organizations say, we go by the customer first. I don't really think all organizations implement what they say. In this case, the Agile mindset brings the customer on the table during the entire process. When we talk a little bit shortly about the framework itself, we'll see that the customer will have times into those retrospectives within the team, but before the retrospectives, you'll have a review, a sprint review of the incremental that it's being about released, and we'll see that they will provide input. So in different times of that product development. Whereas the change itself, and this is the core here, the framework itself is designed in a way that they could be shifted. That's why it's important to understand the values are very important, but those values drive the 12 principles that Agile has. Instead of going in all the Agile principles, I like to group them based on the way I see it. So the way I see it is, what do these principles help me to do? They help me respond to my why as an organization. Why? Because they're really focused on the customer satisfaction, because the customer is always there. They need motivated people within that team. Why? Because you cannot trust people who are not motivated, and those people don't have a very strong top-down control and command way they used to work in traditional management. So these people within the Scrum teams have a lot of independence. So they do need to be motivated and included since the beginning. So you can trust their work, and they feel like they want to do that. In terms of principles that respond to my what are we delivering? Well, we don't know 100% of it since the beginning, and we need to be okay with it. These requirements, as I said, they are changing, and we'll always be delivering incremental products. So we have to kind of take a deep breath and understand that the changing requirements and circumstances, in this case, our circumstances change. Even with the webinar that PMI North Italy is doing, it was coming out of a need. But why? Because the circumstances changed, and they were open, and they were thinking agile way to do that. In terms of when, as I said, they daily, we don't go into the details of a Scrum. We can have another one on Scrum itself, but they have a daily back and forth within the team, what helped us. And what I like about these principles, as I mentioned before, the reflection time, not just about the product, but also about how did we cooperate and work together. And then the how, it's a very not command and control, but self-organized team. They decide what they want to work first on. Of course, you have a product owner there that sets the priority, but then the team on how to do it, they're free to design it themselves. So what can we get out of leadership if we look from an agile lenses? One of my MIT professors, she has a really interesting book on agile, about change itself, on us as individuals. So what I'd like to say is that leadership starts with you. So you can't just go in the organization. If you're a Scrum Master, try to change them. Try to look deep down into yourself, first of all. Are you ready for this sort of mindset and framework and values? And see where are you lacking some of these areas, and try to find a balance within those. So what we'll be doing is no more this, so command and control, but hopefully this. So we'll have to have a shared, I would like to see it as a community, shared leadership aspect. So we won't have trying to fix what has been going wrong and just putting band-aids to it, but we'll try to keep going and keep Kaizen, continuous improvement, so continuous openness to change. So don't just create these organizations that are, let's change this organization. Yes, cool, but the point is, next time might need a new change. So what you need to build is this mindset of changeability. So the organization has to become changeable. And the way you do that is by building these values and principles within the organization and getting away from command and control. Thank you, Francesco. I don't know if we have any questions yet, and I know you have to.
Thank you very much, Sidita, for your presentation. We have a question that I will be raising to you. This is from this is, how can Agile methodology simplify the current bureaucratic reality in the project management?
Fortunately enough, as I said, the PMO is taking care of it. So I'd say for a couple of months, maybe you need to hang on to it. I wouldn't just sit and wait, but I'm saying for a long-term perspective, the PMP certification will change the way it's designed. So it won't be more about traditional project management, but will be more about agility itself. So if you get certified, you have to use the other sort of methodology, which is more agile based. We talk about here, actually it's mixed with a topic which is change management. It's one of my favorite topics. The way we, at least at FedEx, we didn't have a PMO office, not the FedEx smaller, but the FedEx logistics I was working at. We didn't even have a quality department. So I got certified in quality, and I was just like volunteering myself, and that's how the change started happening. I was reaching out. This is not a framework, so don't need to take notes or anything, but this was my experience because I was challenged with this same situation. So I didn't have a framework to use that I would say I'm just applying this. I use people who are I would say informal leadership, service leadership as well. I use people who, use is a bad word, but we're kind of very friendship relationship there. I had a lot of exposure in the company. So, but I went to people who I knew that have this inner desire for getting things better. And by cooperating with those people and starting improvement projects or whatever project was there as a core, this kind of showed success in the company. When the corporate area saw the success, then it was easy for them to come. They actually started coming to me and saying, Sidita, do you want to lead a project in finance? I was not in the finance department. And I'm like, I don't know much about your financial planning there. And they're like, no, we've seen that whatever you're doing there, it's working, so come to us. So if you don't have an organization or a leadership who already has embraced Agile, I would say start small, start with a smaller project that shows the results, and then show those and use those to get buy-in.
Thank you again, Sidita. We have other few questions. We run out of time,
No
so
problem,
we will take offline. We'll share with you so that you can provide your view, your answer. And before closing the webinar, there are a few information I have to share with you. So first of all, the next lunch with NIC. So in this July month, we have one webinar per week at lunchtime. So the next is next week, July 24, and then at the end of the month, July 30. This webinar that we attended today qualify for 0.5 PDU in the leadership area. And after the event, you will be receiving an email with a short feedback questionnaire. Please do that. It will not take too much time and will give us the opportunity to understand your needs, to listen your voice, and to improve in the future. So thank you again, Sidita, for the speech today, and thank you to all the participants for having joined the lunch with NIC today. Thank you and bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.